Hello, everyone. This is Benjamin. Today, I'm going to be doing a video for a friend. He wanted me to do the Colle system. But first, before I get that started, I am going to be doing how do I put it? I'm going to be doing some puzzles first. I'm trying to find my video. Give me a second, so I can look at the chat while it's going. But if I can't do this in like 5 or 10 seconds, I'm just gonna do without. So give me a few seconds here. Live. Okay, I found it. So I can actually open this up. Yeah, I can't see the chat on screen. So I have to do it a certain way, specific way. So, all right. I think I'm ready. All right. So it's a puzzles right now. And then, but this time I'm going to do survival instead of 5 minutes. So I can just do like 20 puzzles and then, I always do puzzles for 12 puzzles. So, okay, it's a little delay. I was wondering why I couldn't see something, but there's just a delay. And I don't see the chat. I think the chat's. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. All right. So first thing first, these three are up here, and usually when you look at that, you kind of want to look for back rank mates. I will repeat that every time because I don't know if this is your first video watching or not. So I'll always say it, and it's important to remember. Same thing. When you see 3 pawns in front of a king like this, you kind of want to look for a back rank mate with a rook or a queen. Here you take back, and that would be checkmate. So there you go. All right. In this case, you're on. Basically, this is check, so you kind of have to defend. In this position here, is this move right here defends the king and also calls your own check, which means that the queen is, if he moves the king, then the queen's for free. So the queen has to take to have any, because you're going to lose the queen for free. The king would take back. And then after that, it doesn't matter what white does, because in 2 moves, you're making up the queen. And it'll take him 4. So it doesn't matter if he goes first or you go first. In this case, it's just you're making your queen first. So right here. And the reason they skipped it, but the reason why you win is because that pawn. If you didn't, what I'm saying. That's why I don't like why they skipped some of it, but that's okay. As white here, if I were to take and he were to take back, I can move the pawn up, right? But at the count, he comes in, I go on, and he defends, right? So you take here and he takes back, but he can actually defend this. So I would think that after capturing, you might have to bring your king in. So that's my. All right. See, knowing how to finish is important too. So like when people say the puzzles don't translate too well into games, there's more to it, sometimes. So understanding the more to it is super important. This is check. The king only has 1 square to go back here. He can't, after calling check, the king can't go here, 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 or here because the queen would have all those squares covered, all of them, everything. So the king only has this square to go to. So after check, the king will go back here, and you have a checkmate with the knight. All right. And this is a check. And the king can't move anywhere. The rook's in his way. His pawns are in the way. So that's also a checkmate. He can't take the queen because it's defended by the bishop. And he can't go here. So that's a checkmate in 1. All right. Let me see something here. Let me look at where's my chat thing anyways? Captions. I think is it captions? No. Here it is, chat. Okay. I don't put the overlay anymore because some people watch these on their phone and they say that it makes the screen too small. So All right, that's a check. And nothing can block it, right? The queen's in the wrong diagonal. As you can see the color. This is white, this is black. Usually you don't have to, when you see that, it's easy to know he can't move to defend, to block or defend, because he's not like a knight, you know? So this is check. And the king can't move these squares, so he can't capture own pieces. This bishop has everything blocked off. So that would be a checkmate in one. Over here, the first check I noticed is right here. The king is stuck in the corner. He can't move over because of the bishop. He's not able to move over here at all because the queen has those covered. So does the pawn. And he has no squares to move. So that's checkmate. White to move. It's checkmate in 2. We call it check. The king can't capture because the pawn's defending. So he's forced to move back. And it doesn't matter if he goes here or here, because after he moves, let's say he goes over here, this right here is a check. And it's also checkmate because this king is defending the square and the pawn defending the square. And if he moves here instead, this is check and he can't move back up because the pawn, and he can't come here because his pawn. So it's checkmate in 2 either way. Well, he can defend one more move, but you capture it. And then it's checkmate. Here, it looks a little bit more, there's a little more going on, a lot more pieces, and it looks like an opening. This I seen a couple times in like a London setup where they move the bishop out of the pawn chain, then move this up here. And for some reason, at some point, moving c4. You can actually have this position against London players. And this is actually a common trap or a common mistake that can happen because they're leaving their king exposed and their bishop is not defended. They move their knight over here. I'm assuming to take a pawn. The d4 pawn, he more likely captured it. So it's like a trap, right? This is check. It doesn't matter how he defends, whether it was a pawn, a knight, the queen, doesn't matter how he defends, because this bishop here is under attack. You call it check, and you take the bishop. So yeah, this is a very common for the London if you play against it. And if you don't know where your traps come from or where the openings come from when it's a lot of pieces, it's important to kind of find out, because if you never use that opening, you're never going to see it. But I've played against the London a lot, and that's very common for me to see. All right, in this position here, a little tricky. I know you have like checkmate in 2 if you can just move twice in a row. All right, that's awesome. That'd be a dream come true. But in this position here, he can call check. So let's say I move here, he actually can call check. And after that, your king has to move out the way, and he can maybe sack the bishop, but I don't think that's a good idea. After calling check and moving here, he might be able to move something. So I think that this is not the correct move, just because of this check here, forcing the king to move over, and you don't really have a mate, right? If I can't find something else, I'll get back to it. The most forcing move here is this check over here. And I didn't really think about it first because the king can move out, right? But after realizing this move here has some issues, I decided to go back to it. So this is check. The king is forced to go up. This pawn has this covered, which isn't, super normal to have a pawn here in the middle game when a lot of stuff is gone. It's like an isolated pawn that's very weak, right? But in this case, it's here and it works. So because he moves up and this is covered, he can't move here. Then you call it checkmate. So it's checkmate in 2. I just had to move in reverse. I was thinking of moving this up and then checkmate here, but it's too slow. You have to do the forcing move first, which is check, the most forcing move. He has to defend. Instead of moving up, he can maybe block for 1 round, but that would be checkmate. So check, take, and then it's a checkmate. Here, let's see. I don't like it too much, but I do see a diagonal right here. It says check. Like, there's no checks with these pieces. This king's kind of in the corner. The rook's not doing anything. So I kind of didn't like the position at first for black, but I do see a checkmate because he can't move here because the bishop, right? He can't move here at all. And with this check, there's nothing to defend it. So that's a checkmate instead of a check. All right. And here, there's a lot of pieces. If you take, he'll take back, and that's, you just win a piece here, right? So it might be the puzzle, but to be sure, let's go ahead and count. You have 2 rooks and a queen, 2 rooks and a queen, 4 minor pieces, 4 minor pieces. Okay, so we know that after this trade, you'll be up a bishop because material is pretty even. The pawns are also even. But whenever you see a puzzle, you don't want to do that immediately. You want to look around a little bit more because if you have a checkmate, you want to checkmate your opponent, right? So you have a free piece, but what if you have checkmate, right? So the difference between bullet and longer time control, I if I was playing a bullet game, I would just take it and slow grind my opponent. And a longer time control, I would take my time to find a actual checkmate. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And if I go here, he can just take it. If I go here, I don't see a follow-up because there's not enough pieces attacking, all right? There's no real follow-up. So I would, I mean, if I try to break this open, it'd just be a long struggle. So it looks like it is then. It should be just a piece. But yeah, the check. All right. I didn't see that one capture, but it kind of didn't make a difference. I should have went one move more. I just got lucky that time. It could have been wrong over that. Here, you have control over these squares or these files. You have control over this diagonal. So the king really has nowhere to go, like at all. So if you can keep control over everything and check the king, that'd be checkmate. A lot of times when the king has no squares, somebody might check the king and release a different square where the king can run to. And here, you have to make sure it doesn't happen. And the only square I see that is right here. I can call it check this way, and nothing can capture it, and the king still can't move. So that'd be checkmate. All right, here. This looks might be a little tricky, but my first thing I noticed is the check here. It's protected by the knight, and this queen would have these diagonals, would have all of these, would have all of this, and be attacking here, which means this is the only square available to the king, right? So after check, and this being the only square to the king, I got to look for a follow-up, right? Because it's just a check, right? You kind of want a little bit more. So after check and he moves over, I can't go here for check because the bishop, all right? So that's out the question. So after a check here and he moves up, you can call a check here. And since this is all covered, and this is all covered, it would actually be checkmate in 2. Just check. Yeah, and this is checkmate because it's attacking the king, and it has this right here covered, and the queen has all these squares covered. So that would be checkmate. All right. Here, black to move is checkmate in 1. Actually, this right here has this blocked off, so the king can't move there. This queen can come in here and call it check, attacking the king, and also this diagonal is covered. So everything is covered, so that's checkmate. All right, here, it looks a little bit tricky to me, but it's actually, because of forcing moves, it's actually really possible to see. This is a check. The king can't move because the queen has it covered. So the rook has to take. And then this check right here leads to checkmate. The queen will go back, and then this checkmate. This check. Okay. They didn't show the whole thing, but that would be mate. Here, it looks like they're threatening to call check. But there's not much going on besides that. And it's your move, and you have a stronger check. In fact, this right here, and you're defending each other, and this pawn here. So that'll be checkmate. The king has nowhere to go. He's in check, and everything's defended. All right, here. I think it's checkmate in 1. If you go here with the queen, it's check. You have that diagonal. This pawn is defended twice, so the king can't take it. And over here is defended, so the king can't move back here. The queen has these squares covered, so the king has nowhere to go. So that's just checkmate. All right, here is another diagonal open. This is why it's important to pay attention to your diagonals. A lot of these puzzles are showing what can happen with diagonals a lot more than normal. I'll be done after 20. I'll quit. This is check. And the king can't move because the queen has everything covered. So that will lead to checkmate. So you call check, you'll block it, and then mate. So. All right, that's the last one. And then I go on with the Colle opening and explain a little bit. I try to learn what I can to make it as simple as possible. It's not an opening that I use, but it looks pretty interesting actually. All right, here, this is the end game, a winning end game for black. It's more than just a tactic. Here is an actual end game. This is a check. All right, the king can go anywhere. So it doesn't matter where the king goes. All right, good chance he can't go there because of pawn, but it's a good chance he'll stay near the rook. So let's say you call check. He goes anywhere of these 3 squares. You take the rook. The king goes to the square, and then your pawn moves forward 2 squares. The king can go here, but that's not in time. The pawn will move up, and you will make a queen. So in this here, you just call check, take this, and then make your queen. Oh, they actually allowed it that time. All right. So I'm going to go now. I think this was a pretty good 20 moves. So I can go ahead and quit. It wasn't that bad. Instead of doing 5-minute videos, I think I should do this. I can explain a little bit more and not worry about the time, right? So I need a chessboard. Maybe openings will allow me to do the chessboard. Chess openings? No, that's something different. I was told I cannot stream these. I wanted to, but I asked. And the reason why I think is because you have to pay for them. So let me see if I can figure out openings, lessons, classroom. Would that allow me to do something? Can I move these pieces? Okay, new room. Okay, I can just move stuff around. All right, good. All right, so basically in the Colle system, you always play d4 first. This is pretty much the normal. All right, so d4. And after d4, black can do a lot of different things, right? The most common would be d5 or knight f3. All right, you'll rarely see these. If someone were to, these are very rare, by the way. But if someone did this and you wanted to continue playing the system, what you would have to do is just play like c3 or something, just in case they capture and you capture back. You can always just take it too, but that would like take you out of the system. But either way, it doesn't matter too much. But let's go with the most common, d5. And here, you have a few options because of the setup. These are the main moves Any one of these are fine. But I wouldn't recommend this one because they can just try to pin it, right? And it's kind of, you're supposed to move this up at some point and then it's bishop. So like if you move the knight here, I'm just going to play it out because I can go back. If I go here, let's say take it, well, now you're not in the Colle system, right? So for that reason, in this position, it might better off play here first or even c3. Okay. If you played here and they moved over, you can play your knight move and it'd still be fine because this bishop isn't coming out. Usually play e3 here or c6, and your bishop usually stays back here for a while in the Colle system. Very different than the London. In the London, the bishop goes out like almost immediately to f4, and the bishop can be attacked. And I even had a puzzle where an opening trap where the bishop was on g5. So the bishop stays back and protects his pawn. All right. So let's say you play c3 here. Your opponent can play a lot of different moves. It doesn't really matter too much what your opponent plays, even if he plays over here. But for the most part, this is pretty common. And after a move like e3, which you're not moving your pieces, just your pawns. So it's not, but it's actually pretty solid and fine. And after you move the knight, if they did manage to try to go here because they can't anyways, you can bring your knight over here. Is pretty normal. And the idea behind the opening, usually the bishop goes here, is that after you get your setup going, I'll just play a random move here and castle. Basically, for the most part, the queen usually goes here and the rook can come here. And at some point, you're playing e4, right? In some lines, people have played c4 instead. And the reason why is because they wanted to bring their queen out this way and push their pawns for a queenside attack. So you have the option of doing a kingside attack with the queen here, the rook here. You move this pawn up. You also have the idea of the queenside attack. And at some point, let's pretend you move the queen here instead, because there's different ideas that you can do here. There's 3 different ideas. Is bringing this stuff in to push this up. You have the queen to go here, which is a battery, and eventually bring the knight in and push the pawn. If you push the pawn to f4, you can bring your rook in for a rook lift. So these are different ideas in a Colle system that are pretty interesting, but you have 3 different choices basically. And I don't want you to play automatically, so I'm not going to tell you what you should do because it depends on your opponent. If your opponent is playing moves like c5 and you're trying to come in on the queen side, you can decide that you want to play on the queen side, or you can bring your bishop back and decide to come in and try to break apart this way. So it's like you have a system here, and it's pretty straightforward no matter what black plays for the most part. Example, I play these moves. I mean, your opponent can play this first, and let's say you decide to bring a knight in because he can't be pinned immediately, right? And he plays this next. You're still getting your setup, right? It's still pretty much, you're still getting your setup, all right? If your opponent, let's say, plays c6 first, let's say they're used to playing the Caro-Kann and you play d5 and they decide to play c6 anyways, it's pretty much the same thing, You just come in, and if they do this, that's perfectly fine. You're still going to get the same setup. And the bishop here usually comes in later in the game, or even fianchettos and goes this way, depending on what's going on. So like a lot of stuff is depending on what's going on. And your setup shouldn't be completely automatic. You should pay attention to your opponent. An example would be, let's say he plays this move. You go ahead and play here, and then he goes here. And it's like, well, what do you do now, right? Well, you have more than one option. You have here or here. And in truth, it depends on what you want, right? If you go this way, you have this semi-file open, and there's a good chance that you're probably going to end up doing normal developing moves at some point and bringing your rook in, right? And if you decide to go this way instead, and he takes and you take, well, that would mean that your bishop would be coming out, which isn't normal in most of the lines. But let's say you go here, you're eventually going to bring your bishop out, right? So you don't have, and also this right here prevents you from having the e4 push to break open the center, right? So you're probably going to be playing a little bit differently. So you're going to pay attention to your opponent as well as what's, understanding your system, right? So just to go over a small part of it, I would just play this first. Doesn't matter too much, but if you are going to do that, be mindful. You have to go here, all right? And usually the goal is to bring your bishop here. And yeah, so after this, usually people do play queen to e2 for the pawn push. That's the main idea. Is the main idea. You kind of want to come in and push the pawn up to like bring all your forces out. Like they all just come out like crazy, So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the best way to explain it for beginners, to have a certain setup, but also to be mindful of your opponent. Because if you just do the setup just to do it and you're not being mindful, then one, is going to be boring. Two, you're not going to know what to do or why to do stuff. So I kind of explained a little bit of the one setup, the queen side attack, the e4 push, and also if you don't do e4, at some point f4 and bring the rook in, because you get to attack the king. You have a rook here, your bishop here, and you can bring your knight in at some point. You would have a strong attack. Against the king. So that's usually kind of the main way to go about it, is either this here or at some point this. So, and if you don't like that, where it's not working for you, and you do queen side attack, and it also depends on your opponent, what you think is more vulnerable. All right, here I don't see much vulnerable either side, so I probably would play queen e2 here, and after he develops or something, you might want, you can actually do it right away, and here you can decide if you wanted to do the knight or the bishop. If you did bishop, you'd have two different knights to come in at some point, and it's bishop, right? So you eventually going to want to attack. All right, that's pretty much it. I don't want to get too complicated or too much information. You're just gonna have to wing it and figure it out and kind of learn a little bit here and there. So that's pretty much it for the Colle system, just to get started. I hope it made sense. I hope you enjoy. And yeah, good luck with your chess, and let me know how it works. If you try it out and you have any questions, just comment in my video and I'll get back to you. It's perfectly fine. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. All right. Goodbye.